All right, so welcome everybody. I'd like to invite Tony Begum today to our ABCs or the AI Business Catalyst podcast series. So, episode 8 with Tony, which is great. As I mentioned previously, we run these sessions fortnightly. We'll be doing it over the year. There'll be a mid-year break and there'll be a total of 20 sessions. So we have wonderful guests from all over the world sharing their information and their insights on AI. To introduce you to our hosts or co-hosts, we've got the lovely Omar Gawed. He helps organizations shape strategy. He's an architect, he's an analyst. He is great with customer communications. He also runs his own podcast called the Analyst Architect. And Omar is the one that comes up with great questions for our guest speaker that have some depth. So thank you, Omar, again for setting up this session. And then we have Alain Picard. So he is the co-founder of Aiden. He is also an amazing programmer, one of those old school programmers that knows what he's doing, and also runs Iris Business Architect. And so he brings a wealth of information around AI. And as we just spoke behind the scenes, RAG, you name it, you can ask Elaine and he'll help you get those answers. My name is Deirdre Karen. I am also co-founder of Aiden.ai. I also am the founder of Agora Insights, which is a training company that helps business architects and analysts get certified. And I've been going now for 8 years or so, and it feels longer, and been helping people from over 90 countries, 97 to be exact, get certified. And now we've brought in training for AI too, which is going to be a big need in the field. But let's focus on our guest speaker today, Tony Begum. So really happy to have you on board, Tony, and I'm looking forward to this discussion because we'll do something a little bit different to what we have. Tony's going to show us some of his graphs as well. So Tony is a dynamic AI business application architect with extensive experience in digital transformations and strategy cloud solutions for enterprise clients. His expertise spans AI enablement, customer experience, and operational efficiency, particularly in healthcare and manufacturing sectors, with a proven record of leading companies like Stellarus, I think I'm pronouncing it correctly, Microsoft, IBM. Tony excels in bridging business operations with IT infrastructure, driving innovation and maximizing return on investment, very important, through design thinking and advanced technology integration. So great to have you as a guest speaker. Our theme for today is going to be creativity with AI, which I think is very relevant for the discussion today. So thanks very much, and we'll get started.
Thank you, Deirdre, and thank you, Tony, for joining us today. It's really a pleasure to have you on the series, and welcome everyone to today's session. So, as Tony, AI continues to evolve rapidly and take over more routine tasks. There is a growing conversation about what remains human or uniquely human, if I can say that. In a world dominated by automation and AI, where do you believe creativity fits in, and why does it still matter to have creativity in place?
Thanks for having me, Deirdre and Omar and the rest of the team. And thank you for just giving me the opportunity to be on this show. I think it's a fantastic opportunity to reach out to your audience. But that's a great question. And I think it's probably the most important question. I would say that creativity is how we got here, right? It's how we got to where we are, and now we're exploring the possibilities of where this can go. And it's more essential than ever, I think, because AI and automation really excel at patterns and recognition and optimizations, but I think they struggle a little bit with outcomes, what we like to call outcomes-based thinking, which is really the ability to envision entirely new destinations for organizations rather than just optimizing the route to where we're already going, we found that the most transformative breakthroughs happen when humans use creativity to reimagine what's possible, then leverage AI to execute those visions at scale. And that's what we're trying to accomplish. And what we like to do, we kind of like to look at outcomes as a part of an organizational neural network, if you will, because it's all about the neural network. As this concept really exemplifies what it takes human creativity to envision an organization that functions like a brain. Think about it, right? Every time you prompt an LLM, you're using those layers of those neural networks, but with interconnected intelligence across departments, AI really helps us build and optimize those neural connections, right? Because right now it's very siloed. We're very vertical, but we need to really go across the organization horizontally. And I think that's that creative leap of seeing organizations as living adaptive systems. That's, I think, unique to being human.
That's awesome. Thank you, Tony.
Tony, you've been around in the digital transformation for a while, and we were just talking earlier about some pretty complex scenarios. How do you see creativity? Because I think we're getting to a point where creativity is not itself the realm of AI, at least at this point. So that's more the human aspect. But how do you inject creativity in this decision-making process that is AI supported?
Very good. Thank you. I would say creativity is a human nature. And when we bridge the gaps between what we naturally do as humans to the technology that can help enable that creativity, we've now expanded on entirely new horizons that we have yet to even understand, if I say it bluntly. And so by taking what we already know, is we're untapping the human connectivity, or the outcomes, we call it, but we're really unleashing that creativity within the organization. So when we ask you, what did you do to reach unimaginable success in your organization? What we're really saying is, let's unlock that imagination of what that means. And by unlocking the imagination, you're basically unlocking the creativity. And then after you've created those outcomes, or actually we've created the outcomes for you, when you unlock the imagination, then we can really use AI to bring that together.
Thank you. Interesting.
Yeah, I like that. I'm going to go out of script a little bit and maybe just dive a little bit deeper into this. So when you were looking at unlocking that creativity side, is it your thought that AI would be helping that process, or actually being co-designing with that? Do you think it can be creative itself? Or is that going to be completely human? Or is that maybe in the future? Where do you see that going?
I think where we are right now, Deidre, is in conjunction with human. I think there's a path to where AI can be ultimately creative on its own and make those decisions without the human. But I don't know that we're actually there yet. We hear a lot of talk about the year of the agents, and there's a lot of development in that field where agents are doing a lot of autonomous things to create unique opportunities for humans to build, develop, explore. But I've seen it, but I haven't actually used it in the mechanism or the methodology that we're using with our companies. So that's human plus assistant, right? So where I'm at, I'm actually trying to better understand what it is that I'm trying to accomplish, the why that I'm here in this organization to reach that outcome or that unimaginable success that every organization wants to achieve. So what I can do then is I can help, or AI can do, is it can help create the connections between the neurons, which of course is the outcome, which could then actually produce something that I don't think as humans, we don't have that capability to do at scale.
Yeah, I like that. So the intersection really is looking at how you have the human coming up with creativity, because really, if you look at it, AI is not that creative. If you were to start this innovative business, it can't really help you, um, but it
No,
can bring a lot of that knowledge together, like you were saying, working with what people are saying, bringing that knowledge together and binding those things and being really good at that. And that's what you've been doing with your model as well, right? So taking that
exactly.
knowledge from the humans and using AI to help make it better. I think that's
That's
the question.
right. Exactly. When we unleash the creative imagination of a human, it's just unlimited to what we can do. But now that if we can now extract that knowledge and then apply that to an AI technology, now we have something that we've amplified the human creativity within the organization. And I think that's what we're trying to accomplish.
Okay, great. I don't know if you want to respond to that or take it. He's really good at Omar weaves really well. So he's got a natural ability to pick up when we go off script to pull it all back.
Honestly, the discussion is very insightful for me, and I'm just having this kind of thinking that when we talk about creativity and creative thinking and how humans are creative rather than AI, but I think it will be a challenge to large corporates or large enterprises. And I think you have worked in major organizations across different domains. So what do you think how these environments can learn from creative thinking or can adapt or tackle creative thinking within this large enterprises?
That's a great question. And we don't know, Omar. But what we can do is we can create a safe environment for where we can come together to learn together. We know the technology has the capability. We know as humans we have the creativity. And if we have a GPS, if you will, for the organization, then we have a map for how to get to the destination. Now, if we can combine all of that together, which this is still early days and we're still working it out, and that's why we call it a safe space, the biosphere or the future lab or whatever you want to call it. We bring teams together that have specific domain knowledge within the GPS so that we can really understand what the future of work looks like for within that organization for a specific domain. Call it product development as a great example. Maybe we have an AI assistant that is completely trained on customer knowledge. And so now, as opposed to sitting with your customer and spending those time and resources, we have a cybernetic teammate sitting next to us that we're now working with the customer as if the customer was really there to develop the future of what the product looks like, for instance, for what they're trying to accomplish. And that's just one example of many use cases that we've built for how we can unleash and how we address the challenges that we found.
I totally
Just
agree
for
with you, to
our
be honest. Go on,
just for
Olin.
our okay, just for
Mark,
our
carry on.
audience, Tony, you mentioned GPS. Can you explain the? I don't think we're talking about the global positioning system. So
Of course. Yes, thank you so much for that. Yes, I'm so used to using it in my own terms, but the GPS is, think about it as the way that you use a GPS in a car. You need to know where your destination is before you get there. It's the same principle that we apply to organizations that we work in. We define the GPS as critical design thinking with an outcomes-based thinking model, and we call that the mechanism. Now, the term GPS stuck because, and maybe I'll have an opportunity to show you this later, but as you look at how we define the why and the how, the context and the content of the organization, think of it as the root system of the tree. where all the technology and all the processes and business, and then the content is all the leads or the customer facing. And as we bring those two together, we define it as, it looks like it's not a mind map, it's not a process map, it's the organizational outcomes linked together from the destination all the way down to the highways and byways that connect them. And then one executive said, that kind of looks like a GPS, and it just stuck. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood the term and its relation to the discussion.
Thank you.
And you just brought design thinking and your outcome-based thinking. First of all, how those two concepts relate to each other? And basically, how do you involve AI in tying those two things together?
Sure. So when we say outcomes-based thinking, what we mean is to really break free from the conventional problem solving. So instead of asking, how do we improve a current process, we ask, what outcome do we really want to achieve for our stakeholders? So this shift from process-focused or design thinking focus to outcomes-focused thinking, it really opens up, as we mentioned before, that creativity and the possibilities within it. So for example, in our work with organizations, we don't start with technology solutions, right? We start by creating what we call the mechanism or the GPS. It's like a system that helps organizations navigate from where they are to where they want to be, right? So the creativity really comes in designing that navigation system to be adaptive and self-improving, which we're hoping to get, using AI not as a replacement for human insight, but more as an amplifier of creativity and problem solving. So when I say based thinking is a kissing cousin to design thinking, they're similar, but their approach is different.
Okay. Thank you.
Makes sense. I just want to go all the way back to discussing the role of AI in this creative process. So you've mentioned that you need to have the human first, which makes a lot of sense. You're looking at the roles of what humans do, what they say, and you're forming this GPS, this ecosystem of how all the parts work together. So how do you see generative AI as one, it could be other AI sources as well, evolving? So what do you see happening next? How would AI, besides what it's doing today, also evolve in that creative process? What do you think? Because this is now a future question, right? So what does it look like?
Yeah, now AI is evolving so fast, a bit too fast for us to really be able to apply it in business terms. And reinforcement learning is probably the greatest transformation within generative AI, I would say, to date. This gives the ability for AI to reason through various topics and discussions and the things that we've been discussing. So with that said, I think there's going to be a model dependency on the business problem that's trying to be solved. We know that all platforms are very model agnostic, and they're that way for a reason. So as generative AI is really revolutionizing how we approach creative problem solving, which of course it is, by really it's what we're calling agentic reasoning. I think that's evolving into that space. So AI systems that can actively explore the possibilities rather than just respond to the input or the query. So some of the research that we've done, AI can serve as that, I mentioned before, that cybernetic teammate, not replacing human creativity, but amplifying it. For instance, our work with graph-based reasoning shows how AI can really help identify the connections across vast knowledge networks that humans might miss. But we can't do that. AI is excellent at that. So while we provide the creative insight to interpret and act on those connections, the key, in my opinion, the key of using AI to enhance that human cognitive capability that we have, it really helps us see patterns and explore possibilities and test ideas really at unprecedented scale and speed. It's incredible. And so that's what we hope to unlock, but we really have to be model selective in how we look at which problems we're trying to solve.
Just so that I understand, when you say model selective, do you mean choosing the right LLM to?
That's right.
Okay. So do you have a favorite
Exactly.
at the moment? Should you
I
not
don't.
say? Okay,
I
good.
don't. Because there's specific, like for coding, I do for a week and then it changes.
No, then another one comes there.
Exactly. And I'm so curious, as we all are, that I have to try the new one. So 4.1 has been great, and then Flash 2.5 came out, and now it's just mind blowing how quickly this is evolving, and I test every single one of them. And do I have a favorite for the GPS? Yes, I'm still OpenAI on that. The GPS, yeah. I can't find one that does better reasoning, to be honest. Those O models are incredible.
They do perform pretty well. I have seen
They
that
do.
Grok 3 has done very well as well. So I think that's going to be a big competitor in the future. But yeah, we basically also mostly stick to the OpenAI at this point in time.
That's right.
I think Perplexity is one of the best at reasoning as well, especially for researching.
Yeah, and they use Claude, actually. They're a big Claude
yeah.
shop.
Yeah.
And on them. So
Yeah.
nothing wrong with Claude. No, and especially I'm testing the new Sonnet 4, so I'm actually enjoying it. But I can't really put an opinion on it yet until I really do. I spend a few weeks on every model before I don't just test it and go, oh yeah, that's great. There's a lot I have to test and to understand before I can really say, okay, let's shift. Because when you shift from what's been trained to a new model, there's some dependencies that you have to be thinking about when doing that. And it's not easy it's easy to do, but you really have to have the evaluation and the feedback with that in place before you do such a thing.
And the amount of change, as these models change, that will influence the data that you've been collecting and how it interprets that data, and then it goes all the way back to the RAG. And yeah, there's lots to consider in just flicking to the next model.
That's right. And we can on a personal side, but when it comes to business and with executives relying on the GPS and Betty, we're still building trust, and they know that in a safe space that it's not there yet, but it's going to get there. And when it does, there's the whole understanding of how that's going to be managed when new models come on the market. And we do want to change. So how do we really do that in a systematic way that not only increases the outcome, but doesn't hallucinate, our favorite word of all time, because Gen AI is so darn creative. It gets a little too creative at times, as we know.
Need massive testing.
Yes.
Omar, I think you can ask the final question, and then we can
last
go
one. Darn. Sorry.
I think question 7 is related to the example. I think Tony can share what you like. And Elaine, if you would like to take over this question, and then we can ask the final question.
That's true, actually. Well done. We didn't even see that.
Perfect.
Okay.
We were looking, and we've talked about this design thinking and the GPS and everything. And we ended up in the pre-conversation about graph RAG and everything. And I'd like you, Tony, to give us a bit more and basically give our guests a bit of a frame of reference about this GPS and about how you're using creativity in terms of looking at outcomes first to basically define. So you're reversing things. You say, okay, give me the outcome that you're looking for, and then we'll reverse engineer, if I can use that term, basically to get to how to get there and we'll figure out the way to get to those outcomes based on tell me what you want, then I'll tell you how to get it. Maybe if you could share your screen and give us a flavor of how this all works and how this creativity is infused into AI and this business outcome process.
Yeah, and before I jump in, thank you, and I'd be happy to do that. And really, one of our most impactful breakthroughs came when we reconceptualized the organizational intelligence as a neural network rather than a hierarchy, because that's how most organizations think today. So this creative insight really led to the development of what we're calling the first neuron concept, right? So each of the nodes that you'll see here in a moment, where instead of implementing AI departmentally, we're creating this centralized hub or graph that connects all those organizational AI agents together. So now think about HR when it's writing a new job description. Is it outcomes? Does it have an outcomes voice? We're looking at finance and making decisions for sales or marketing. Everything is now going to be plugged into this graph that will be able to make reference or determination or guidance on how marketing and sales are done, because these enterprise applications will all ultimately have the ability to reach into the graph. So that creative leap, I think, is what I'm trying to say, was really seeing that value isn't individual AIs all across departments, because now we're just going back to where we were, but it's in the connections between that. That's just how, think about the brain power comes from the neural connections, not individual neurons. They don't work that way. So this approach, and we've proven this, has really helped our organization, the organizations that we've done this, achieve like 40% faster decision making. And you've seen all the numbers, the 65% better cross-departmental collaboration. And to me, this was the most insightful one, because I can now, as a marketing manager, can now ask the GPS, what are we doing from an outcomes-based perspective in our product development team? And how does that affect how I want to market to our customers? Anyway, I wanted to just preface it a little bit before I jumped into it, but let me share my screen, because I'd be happy to do that.
While you're sharing the screen, that would mean,
sure.
Let's say you talk about HR, marketing, sales, but let me take marketing as an example. When you're using this GPS and you're using AI, you would make sure that AI knows to validate and align your marketing strategy or marketing plan based on outcomes that you've already predefined.
That's right. You nailed it.
Ask AI, how can I achieve this outcome or this set of outcomes that I've defined, and to really optimize those outcomes?
That's right. Exactly. Exactly. So this is the mechanism, and this is a work in progress. It's complete, but basically this is what it is that we work with organizations to help form and to shape the outcomes. And the way you really look at that is from a top down. So we have the why, which is the cause, right? It's all the context of the business: agility, confidence, culture, decisions, creativity, digital technology. These are all the neighborhoods within that specific domain. Each of these outcomes have our stakeholders' voice in them. So we've done, in this particular case, I believe it was 30 news conferences, and those news conferences really go from, they could either be the why, the cause, or they could fit into the content of the business. This is the customer facing. So here we have products, we have the experience, we have operations, and so on and so forth. So we top down, why, how, and it goes from right to left, right? So how do we accomplish this? I'm not going to zoom in for confidentiality. And how do we accomplish this? So we move from left to right. And this is basically how the GPS works. What we then do is we have graph definition of each of the relationships with, not only within the individual nodes, right, in the neighborhood, but this is a specific relationship that's different than this relationship within the neighborhood itself. So each of the connections have a relationship of the why how, so it knows if it's going left to right or right to left. And then each of the nodes itself have a specific node or graph relationship to the ID and what neighborhood it's in, if it's in the context or the content, and whether and how the how and the why really connect. So that I tried to do this with RAG itself, and it just didn't work. As soon as I introduced RAG graph, the entire GPS lit up. And I was actually able to get improvements from 40% to like in the 80% now. I still have a lot of work to do on this, and we're still in early stages of developing this. But conceptually, this is what we've been discussing so far. This is the corporation GPS. And before Gen AI, executives love this. They would print this out. They would be on every boardroom, and they could then go and say, all right, look, see that outcome? That's what we're trying to achieve. And then everybody would go, how do we do that? And I get that that's what I'm trying to do. That's my purpose for being here. But how do we operationalize this? And that's where Gen AI really helped evolve what we're doing and give us that ability. And executives they're loving this, and they use Betty today. They ask Betty all sorts of questions. It's so far it's saving them. Oh, sorry. Betty's the name of the agent. Yes. Everybody, we call her Betty because Betty is just stuck since 2015. Actually, I have my wife to thank for that. She's the one that actually named her because it was someone that you're comfortable with talking with.
Betty because she might be offended.
No, no, her name is not Betty. But she's like, Betty is just a easygoing, and we can talk to her. Sure enough, it's stuck, and we have a lot of good performance that we're receiving from how to be an outcomes-based company. That's first and foremost. How to then use the GPS is what we do in the biosphere so that we can really start to drill. And the GPS is what we termed as the organizational map to how to reach those outcomes, how to go from point A to point B. Because as employees, we find that we're more productive when we know why we're doing a certain thing and that we're achieving a specific outcome for doing what we're doing. And I'm not going to go into all the why strategy and vision and all that doesn't work. But we found that if we can,
maybe you should.
What we do is, we'd love to take you through it. We do a news conference. And within the news conference, we put you in the future and we say, what would it be like if Agora had reached unimaginable success? And what are some of the challenges? What are some of the KPIs? How did you do that? And you're at the podium and we're interviewing you, and we're having this dialogue for about 30 minutes. Then we use an AI extraction tool that we've trained and we've called Betty, that we created back in 2015. It got really exciting around 2018. We didn't do much with it then, but Betty is our AI transformational outcomes agent that we use to extract those outcomes. And then once we've got them in this graph, or once we've got this in Lucid, and here's the why, right, or the context of the business. Here's the how, the content of the business. So the effect of the why and the how. So to reach unimaginable success, this is the destination. And these are the highways and byways and state roads for how we get there. So in order to do that, we put this in a RAG graph model that we spoke a bit about this, Deidre. And then that RAG graph we use to create instances of the entire GPS so that when a CEO or an executive asks a question on whether or not they should be doing a specific initiative or they should be investing in a specific technology, our AI tool will then read the entire graph, and then prepare not only whether or not they should be doing it and if it aligns to the outcomes, but then it'll give suggestions on maybe some better ideas or some more creative things they should be doing or thinking about as they look at that initiative. So that's it in a nutshell. It goes a lot deeper than that, but that's what we're doing now. And we're doing it we got 2 companies that we're working with now. We've just extended that contract. We're starting on the 17th of June. So we are going to be focused, and the biosphere is our way of bringing together the organization that in this particular case is around product development. And product development is a big thing for them. They have to move certain things and they have to reach certain goals. And they feel that if we were to create a specific agent for this capabilities, for instance, or collaborate or design, that they could then, their global product development team could use that AI assistant to basically make better decisions, create better products, work more closely with their customers and so forth. So they don't like Biosphere, they like Futures Lab, but we like Biosphere, so I'll probably say Biosphere. It doesn't really matter. It's just a safe environment for everybody to work in and design the future of work. Each of these have major impact on how companies achieve imaginable success. So it takes quite a while and many weeks of sprints just to go into this piece of the GPS. It's an evolving process, and right now everybody wants to know how to become an outcomes-based company. So that's Betty is there to introduce everybody. If I have a question, how do I know that it's a part of the outcomes that we should be doing, and so on and so forth. So that's Betty. She's great.
Okay, so we saw that you have the why and the how on the right-hand side.
Yeah.
How do they connect? And I see also that you seem to have things like around products that are scattered on both sides. So where do they fit and what?
So we have design, we have technology, we have innovation, we have capabilities. Even though this entire neighborhood is about products, within each of the products, there's specific neighborhoods that are used to basically create what it takes to create a product.
And some are
this is
on
really
the
on the
outside,
how,
and some are on the Y side. Okay. So this
exactly.
This scaffold on both sides.
This is how we work and develop it and create it. So you're seeing how the sausage is made when we actually present this. None of these sticky notes are here and all of that. It's beautiful. And this is all the way over to, it's part of the how, not part of the why. So I'm just showing you a little bit of just how, we do it.
Okay.
But it's actually,
I'm also interested, I think, in a Venn diagram when you have intersections of things that are living in two worlds at the same time, usually that has a meaning, and that's what I was trying to uncover.
Yep, it certainly does. And this is why this isn't a process map or a value map or a mind map or any kind of map. It's actually an entirely new way of how organizations are looking at driving outcomes and driving the performance that they're trying to achieve.
You were talking about interviews and sprint too, because to elaborate this GPS, can you dig a little bit more into the general idea or general process of how you basically uncover the information to build a GPS?
So once the GPS is built, then what we do, so after the news conference, we extract the news conference, and then from that, we extract the outcomes from the statements that we got from the stakeholders, and then we determine.
So what is a news conference in terms of a GPS? We talk about news conference with politicians all the time and journalists and whatnot, for the most part, but what is a news conference in terms of a business?
So in terms of the business, what we want to do is get you out of the vortex of the urgent and help you just for 30 minutes, unlock your creativity and your imagination to what possibilities could be. And what we do as the interviewer, and you're at the podium, and we basically ask you questions to help unlock and unleash that imagination. And it's amazing. You could tell us pigs fly. You could tell us Star Wars this. You can just get as creative as you want about the entire process. It's a safe space that we interview you on to help you get out of that, right? Those headwinds that constantly get us mired in the details of everything that we have to do today without really thinking about the end, right? What is it that we're trying to really accomplish? What are the outcomes that we're trying to really achieve in what it is that we're doing? And there's so much waste in that because of so many reasons. You're all architects, you all know the reasons. But the fact remains that we have to get out of the mindset of the vortex, right? It just continually sucks us into the urgent and what we need to do now. This gives us now the ability to take a really big step back and see what it is we're trying to do as an organization. Yeah.
And I think that's great because with AI, we really don't know everything. So it's better to actually do some exploration. You can stop sharing for a minute if you don't mind, Tony.
Of course.
I was involved in a project for 5 years called The Vortex.
Wow.
For the very same reasons you're discussing, a massive change project and just the amount of change and volume and things that people were experiencing was huge. Yeah, I get it. I think I just haven't heard Vortex for a while, so I thought I'd
Did you get sucked in?
yeah.
Sure. We
That
all
was
do.
that was a massive rollout. Thousands of people. I got so many Voyager miles that I could travel with my family. The place, so that was good.
Yeah, we've all been there.
Omar, I'll let you ask the last question if you want.
Yeah, thank you, Didri, and thank you, Tony, for this presentation. It is very insightful, and I really enjoyed it. My last question to you is, personally, I see people are fearing of AI and they believe that AI is killing the creativity. However, from my point of view, it is not. AI is not creative as humans are. And that's we discussed in the session. But from your view or your perspective, what kind of skills people need, whether they are technical or non-technical professionals, to stay creative in the AI era or the hype of AI, let's say?
Yeah, and that's a really great question. And I think about that a lot because it seems like intelligence is becoming commoditized. And how do we actually, without losing our creativity? I have kids, I have grandkids, and they're in school, and I'm teaching them the principles of AI and not in it doing your work, but helping assist in what it is that you're trying to accomplish. So what I mean by that is creativity is really becoming like even more of a core competency, right? That differentiates human intelligence from artificial intelligence. Where before it was creativity and that's all we had, but now we've got this whole nother layer. We have to even create more, we have to even be more conscientious of the creativity that we're applying to AI. AI, right, it excels at optimization and pattern recognition, and we excel, humans, at reimagining possibilities and creating entire new, I hate the word, but paradigms of what those possibilities mean. So even though we're moving toward what we call a self-organized knowledge network, right? That's what we're trying to accomplish. Where creativity, like insights from humans, guided AI systems, and building and evolving that organizational intelligence that we're trying to accomplish. The future really is in the organizations that can harness that human AI collaboration, right? To reinvent themselves. They're always and the thing is, it's on every CEO and CXO's mind right now. It's the Wild West in organizations right now. They don't know what to do with this. They don't even know how to measure it. Where do we start? So our vision, right, is for organizations as like a living adaptive systems, right? like the organizational neural network. That's how we look at it, that can learn, evolve, and create new possibilities, right? Which it really requires that fundamental shift from seeing technology as a tool to seeing it as a creative partner or that cybernetic teammate when building what the future of future work really is.
It's so true. This is so true. I've been saying it for a long time now. AI is not a tool, it's a resource. When you have to train it, unlike tools,
Exactly.
it's a whole different resource. Would you consider that maybe in the future, AI, because you've got Betty, but there could be lots of Bettys, right? That are very specific. You know, when we use Aiden, we've got Aiden and Archibald and all these different kinds of AI. But would you consider that AI in the role of how people work would be like a 2IC, or is that too far? So in other words, like the role would be mimicking or be creating a digital twin of what that person is doing. So obviously the human is always is the boss, put it that way. But that you could almost simulate some of those things that particular human does, that or the collective group would do. Do you see some of that happening in the future?
Yeah, digital twin is a hot topic right now in AI research. And there are many different approaches to that for how much I want to digitally twin what I do. Could I train an agent to act as a role with my skills, provide the tools that I need to perform that function? Absolutely. Do I see it as being something that's widely adopted? Maybe not so much. I think that it's going to be very specific, repetitive type of processes and jobs that it will be able to accomplish, but I don't know that it will really take hold from an entire organization. Sam Altman certainly does. He thinks that there will be a one-person billion-dollar company by 2030. I don't think that's a stretch. I think there's certainly possibilities in that happening because it's not the technology, it's how we're applying it as an assistant or as a tool for us. But that was a great question, and I've been thinking about that quite heavily. You have to stay abreast of things that AI can really do well, but I think they complement humans. I don't think they're going to be taking over what it is that we're trying to in our daily lives. We've been using it for 20 years, so it's not that we're new to it. It's just now that it's shifting into more of a way of enhancing or amplifying our creativity. I think that's really the key.
Final thoughts, gentlemen? Omar?
Thank you, Tony, so much. I really enjoyed this session and I enjoyed your presentation as well. Happy to have you today, and it's a pleasure meeting you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Omar. It's been a pleasure being here.
I would say likewise. It's been very interesting, and I think it really shows where things are heading in terms of AI, in terms of applying creativity, and I would also argue reasoning as well, because I think AI is great at gathering the facts, gathering information, and presenting great reasoning models to a human to make the final decision. And I think what you showed is very much aligned with that as well. So it's quite interesting. And I learned that there's not only Archibald, there's Betty around.
It's been a pleasure speaking with you today.
Thanks a lot.
It really has.
So,
My
Tony,
pleasure.
I love your creativity. I really love the design thinking approach. I love the outcomes driven. I think focusing on that bit is super important. I also like the fact that you're working at the executive level because I think it's important to really influence how things are going. And yeah, bringing all those parts together, doing your RAG graph and all kinds of things, or graph rag, whichever way you want to say it, and I think that's been great. So I think just opening up the possibilities in this session for others to see has been great, wild. So thank you. It's been awesome having you as a guest speaker. Really appreciate your time and appreciate the flexibility and the willingness to try new things. So yeah.
Thank you, Deidre, for putting these together. I learn a lot, not only from these sessions that you do, but future sessions. I think you're giving a lot back to the community. So thank you and team.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Thank you.